Hello, everyone. I wanted to make this video to sort of explain what my goal is by making this channel. All right. Um, Let me start by telling you all something that many of you are probably already aware of. It's very hard to teach. Okay. Uh, Especially if you're a teacher, you know this. You have all kinds of pressures on you from a number of different actors. You are pressured by the administration. Okay, you're pressured by parents, pressured by other teachers, and yes, pressured by students. Uh, and when you teach, you're not only a teacher. For those of you who went to school in the United States, you've also probably seen teachers doing other important tasks, such as being a nurse, being a psychologist, coaches, mentors, subject specialists, editors. Sometimes you even have to be an electrician, a tech wizard, and some are better than others at that. Um, you have to be a nanny a lot of the time. And I've known some teachers who seem to spend more time cleaning than there are hours in a day. All right. And I know I have a few times. It's a messy business to be a teacher and it includes a lot of bodily fluids that you have to know how to clean. All right. Uh, emails. You are getting emails constantly from parents, from teachers, from administrators, from outside stakeholders. You're getting emails from the school psychologist, and you have to answer all these in a pretty timely fashion, to the point where you're almost certainly going to have to do some of those emails at home. So even when the school day ends, you're still working once you get back home. All right. Um, Not to mention, even when the school day ends, you might have to prepare a lesson for the next day. You might have to do grading. Um, you might have to submit report cards. Tons of other things you have to do that you definitely cannot get done in the amount of time you're actually at school. Okay. And God forbid if you're a parent at the same time. I am not a parent. Uh, so I guess in that regard, I'm lucky to be a teacher that's not a parent. But as you can imagine, there are a lot of teachers who love children and who have kids. So God forbid you're a parent at the same time. So when you get off work, you go home and you have to do a second shift, uh, caring for your children, picking them up from school, doing chores, cooking dinner, things like that. All right. Good luck finding any uh, way at all to have some time to relax, carving out time at the end of your day. Now, then, if you do get to go to sleep at the end of your day, um, don't worry, because you get to wake up the next day and do it all over again, unless it's a Friday, in which case, yay for weekends. But throughout the week, it's day after day after day, where you have to go into a building, um, and you have to do things such as have an active audience of students, sometimes others, uh, and they require constant supervision. And this most teachers teach up to around in front of a class up to around 6 hours a day. So imagine standing in front of a audience where you're being looked to for guidance. You are the one in charge. You have to manage the classroom. You have to make sure everyone's on task, and you have to do that for 6 hours, and you barely get a break. Because you do, by the way, also have to ensure that your own biological needs are being met. You know, I'm not going to go into what those are, but you can guess, right? You have to take biology breaks. You have to eat something. I cannot tell you the number of times I and other teachers have to work during lunch, whether having a meeting, uh, working on things. Lunch, good luck, actually having time to sit and relax during your lunch break. Not easy. Okay. This, uh, this is made worse. All right. Especially if you have a medical condition, a mental health condition, a disability, uh, and teachers who are human, by the way. Yes, they're all humans. I know we may not feel that way a lot of the time, but they are humans. They're humans. So they have these things. They have medical conditions. They have mental illness, excuse me, mental health concerns. They have disabilities. If you have those things on top of all the rest of it, good luck to you, right? That's not going to make it easier. Um, and there's not much that can be done to accommodate that. Some schools are better, others not so much. There might not be enough funding, there might not be a will. So just you can see I'm getting kind of worked up here, but you can understand how that is extremely problematic. And I haven't even gotten to the next part yet. All right. And that's the pay. To be honest, I doubt I need to go into much detail about the deficiencies in teacher salaries. Um, why don't I need to go into much detail about that? Well, because it's an issue affecting most Americans and much of the planet. Um, most of you watching have known what it feels like to have an endless sense of anxiety and quite literally despair um, when you open up your bank account uh, and you see that balance and you suddenly realize that all those pesky little things like hopes and dreams and goals are farther away than ever. You may even been thinking to yourself, oh, am I going to be a renter forever? Am I never going to be able to afford a home? Um, that is a problem that is especially bad in America right now. It is also bad in other places in the world. But in one of the wealthiest countries in human history, that should not be a problem, but it is. And that's where we're at. People living paycheck to survive, and many teachers are the same way. Um, High housing costs, high grocery costs, the cost of medical care. That is another added stressor that teachers have to deal with. And if you work at a private school or a religious school, your wages are even lower. Okay. So, in most cases, so just be aware of that. Okay. That's another added stressor on top of teachers. They have all those regular economic stressors on top of all the other stressors I mentioned. It's a lot. Okay. And it oftentimes results in you having to make decisions about things that are v- very important and dark decisions about things. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, I got a root canal. I have a tooth that was in extreme pain. Um, it cost a lot of money. I had to decide, yeah, I think I'll spend that so that I don't have to be in pain. And hopefully, I'll be getting my paycheck soon. So that'll make up for it. You have to make decisions about important things like that. You might have to decide, should I take this medication? Should I pay that copay? Because I don't know if I'll have enough to pay rent next week. I don't know if I'll have enough to afford that present for my child. I don't know if I will have enough to get those groceries I need. Um, y- you have to make those decisions as well. And a lot of times, those decisions are deciding whether you need to fix something or help yourself with something so that you can be a better teacher, but you can't because you can't afford it. There are multiple procedures that teachers I've known have not had, and they've just suffered through whatever they're suffering through while teaching because they cannot afford the procedure that's required medically for them to feel better and to be healthier. That is one of the things that perhaps angers me the most. And don't even get me started on the American healthcare system. It's corrupt. It is absolutely inefficient. We get worse care and we pay more for that worse care than most other wealthy countries. If you are in Europe, you probably are like, what is he talking about? You mean you don't get health care and it's super expensive? Yeah. Yeah, we don't. I know that's normal in the rest of the world. Most of the rest of the world, at least those places that are, thoughtful and caring about their people, have universal health care because you can't help if you're sick or not. But no, not in the United States. We do it by profit. So who cares if you're sick, if you're in pain? Who cares? Someone needs to make a buck somewhere. Okay. Anyway, I digress. I will make a different video about the American healthcare system. My point here is that teachers have all of those stressors on top of the stress of their doing their actual job. All right. And it is absolutely unsustainable. There's a reason why there's a teacher shortage in this country. Okay. I could go on and on. All right. Let me say one other thing. A lot of times when teachers talk about the stresses of their work, people will respond to them, well, yes, but you get summers off. You get, you get more days off than a lot of people during the year. Let me add a couple things about it. It is true. Teachers get more time off than a lot of some other professions. Okay. Uh, there are a couple problems with this. One, some of that time, by the way, is spent preparing lesson plans, grading, doing other things that you did not have time to do during the regular school year. Okay. On top of that, most of the teachers I've met, probably a majority of them, get second jobs during the summer and do work because they need that income. If they're not working during that time, they won't make enough money during the year because the regular salary is poor. And we need every hour we can to rest and relax. And just because you have time off doesn't mean that you're getting that rest and relaxation you need. You need to I know for me, I know I might not be the best example, but other teachers are much stronger than I am and have higher endurance. Um, but it takes me at least a month during the summer to fully rest and recuperate from the year. All these thoughts flying around in my head, all these anxieties, getting my body back to a baseline where I can actually relax takes about a month. So there's a month gone. And for those teachers that work and do other things like that, you're not going to have as much time to rest and relax. Okay. Uh, and by the way, I think everyone in the country should have as much time off as teachers. In America, we work far more than equivalent wealth countries, and we get paid less. So, uh, everyone should have much more time off. It doesn't mean teachers shouldn't have that time off. Everyone should have the same amount of time off as teachers, if not more. We are not on this earth just to work and then die. We should be able to live our lives and do things that fulfill us, etc. Okay. So let me just make that point as well. This sort of brings me to the big point of this, right? There's a lot of things that go into teaching. So why am I making these videos? Well, there's another stressor placed on teachers. And it may seem small compared to the others, but when you're a teacher and you love education, you love teaching, this one might stand out above the rest. You get pressured by the state government, the federal government, and local governments. In America, state and local governments are responsible for funding local school systems. The federal government used to do a little bit of funding, but that's essentially been gutted now by the Trump administration. So, what little funding the federal government did do is now gone. So, basically, it is just local and state governments that do the funding. Um, and those local and state governments write the curriculum. And the curriculum is basically a document that shows teachers what they're expected to teach in a classroom. All right. Um, the people that make these documents are either politicians or have been appointed by politicians. And especially in social studies, which is the subject I teach, these documents have become more and more and more politicized. It's not about teaching anymore, it's about indoctrination and teaching a certain worldview. Um, and I am sick of it. Okay. I am sick of having to uh, teach these essentially right wing talking points or not or having basically having to stick to these documents that have all these right-wing talking points shoved in them, all right. um, because what it's doing is it's these documents, these curriculum are forcing teachers to essentially lie to their students, either by adding content that is factually inaccurate, uh, or by removing content that doesn't conform to this right wing worldview. Yes, yes, yes. Left wing worldviews have often also seeped somewhat into curriculum, but those have been largely, from my experience, not have been at least accurate. For example, teaching more about slavery. Yeah, slavery happened. It was a horrific crime upon humanity. It was extremely violent. Yeah, we should talk about slavery. LGBTQ people. LGBTQ people exist. They have had an important role in history. They are people. They have had an influence on the history of America. They have an influence on government. Yeah, we should talk about LGBTQ people. It's just part of reality. It's part of what is out there in the world. Um, so I have found the right wing talking points to be especially nefarious. All right. And I am sick and tired of not being able to actually do what I got into teaching to do, which was to teach critical thinking, um, make people informed consumers of the media, uh, and give them the context they need to change the world for the better and improve their own lives. When you're leaving out information or adding false information, um, it makes it very difficult to do that. And let me tell you, a curriculum is both a teacher's worst uh, enemy and their best friend. If you teach something from the curriculum and a parent, let's say, doesn't like the content, you can simply pull out the curriculum, say, sorry, the state requires I teach this. So if you have a complaint about it, please go speak to the state about it. If you teach things that are not in the curriculum, and trust me, there are a lot of things that are very important for uh, high schoolers, for example, to know before they become adults that are not in the curriculum because they're being purposely omitted for the benefit of certain politicians and for the benefit of certain worldviews. All right. Um, if it's not in the curriculum, someone could complain about it, and then you have no recourse except to say, well, I think it's important, and it is factually important. But if you can't point to it into the curriculum, sorry, uh, you're probably going to be told that you can't teach that anymore. And if you do it enough, you're probably going to get fired. Yes, there are cases where this is uh, problematic, or teachers will teach things that are problematic that are not age appropriate. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about things like in a government class teaching about political corruption, how our system of government actually works, right? And I'll make a video later talking about what you really need to know about how the American government functions. But in a classroom, I would be hard pressed to point to a place in the curriculum where that is talked about. Okay. Even though it is vitally important for understanding how the American government works and vitally important for understanding how to be an active citizen who can actually make change and improve things for the better. So, made this channel so that I could have a way to actually teach what I think is important, so that I could share with you what a lot of teachers cannot share with you. All right, uh, especially if your high school teachers, especially. Um, the majority of Americans do not have college degrees. The majority of Americans do graduate from high school. So if that's the last education you have, a lot of you have gotten a very watered down perspective on how things actually work. And it is important for me to be able to actually teach you some of the most important things that are left out of the curriculum you received. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Another big important thing is empathy. Okay. I want to teach empathy. Empathy does not mean being lovey-dovey and, being a sappy, bleeding heart, okay, about other people. It doesn't have to. It can, but empathy is super important just for understanding how things work, right? If you can understand how another person feels or another group of people feel, you can totally predict what that group or person might do. It makes it much easier to understand historical events, like if you understood what it was like to be a woman before suffrage, and to live a day in her shoes, you might understand why there was such a big push for suffrage. Many things like that. Okay, so these are all things that I want to teach, and I'm going to teach it in the best way I can, and that is here through this channel. Um, Last thing here, when we talk about empathy, I just wanted to add this at the end. Please be empathetic towards your teachers. You may not always agree with what they do. They are human beings, they make mistakes. But from everything I just told you, understand that a teacher does not operate in a vacuum. They have all these pressures on them, many of them similar to the same pressures you're experiencing. And the vast majority of teachers I met really care about their students. They really care about the truth and teaching people the reality. But they are being kneecapped. They are being their ability to do that has been through the last few years has been slowly deteriorated to the point where it's very hard to teach in a way that is uh, teach in the way that they want to teach. We need to change this. The education of the young is super important, and the country is not on a good path. And I think a large part of that is because of everything being done to teachers and to the education system. That being said, please don't give up hope. I'm going to make some more videos. Some of them will show you ways that reasons you should be hopeful. We are the wealthiest, one of the wealthiest countries in human history, if not the wealthiest. We have all the resources we need to make a wonderful society that where everyone is economically secure, where everyone gets a good education. But to get there, we need to know how this political system works and what to do to change it. And on that note, I will be posting more videos soon. If you like this, please like or subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks.